Welcome to our panel discussion on data and decision making, the final day of our second week of the program. So congratulations, everyone. 2 weeks already. So this panel is part of our summer STEM career accelerator. And unlike our regular sessions, today's is open to everyone. So for our panelists, and I think we had a couple of people joining us, other people joining us today, I'll do a very quick introduction to RePicture and our program. And then I'll introduce the panelists and turn it over to Jerry, who is our panel moderator to lead the discussion. So really quick overview. RePicture is a mission-driven public benefit organization. Our vision is a world where everyone can thrive in STEM. And we're building a new way for you to explore careers in this world of STEM all around you. So this is part of our flagship 6-week long summer program. And in the program, we focus on 3 core pillars: professional skills development and workshops, mentorship, and project portfolios. So professional skills, we cover a range of topics like STEM writing and communication, working on teams, preparing and giving presentations. And this is all to close that gap between school and career. And then we also provide our students with many opportunities to connect with a wide range of STEM professionals and mentors through events like these. And then throughout, the students are also learning actively by researching and publishing articles about real-world STEM projects in their field of interest. And through this, they create a unique online portfolio of project research that helps them stand out on job applications and university applications and helps showcase all those skills that they're practicing this summer, as well as their talents and passions. And then for companies, it's a way to identify those motivated students who are genuinely interested in the work that they do. And finally, while our students are building their own portfolio of project research, they're also helping others learn about STEM. We've had to date well over 1,000 STEM projects uploaded onto our platform, and you can now go there to see what kinds of actual things you might be doing with that engineering or biology degree. So our students are helping us build this new way to explore careers. So today is one of 4 panels we'll have this summer. This is the second of the summer. You can find all of our past panels on our YouTube channel on a wide range of topics, including human health, robotics, semiconductors, green energy, and much more. So these panel discussions are really a great resource, not only for our students that are joining us today, but for students everywhere, even beyond today. And with that, I would like to welcome our data science and decision-making panelists. And I will introduce each of them now before passing it over to Jerry. So Barbara is a global program manager at Accenture in the extremely hot area of AI. She is also the president and owner of an IT consultant firm. And she's also a best-selling author of various self-development books. Barbara has studied business law and advertisement at University of Miami and has a BA in project management from Capella University. And we also have Monica. Monica has 8 years of experience in data analytics. She's currently an analytics associate manager at Accenture and has worked as an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. She recently graduated with a master's in data science from American University, and she specializes in NLP, machine learning, statistics, data modeling, data engineering, and pipelines. And we also have John. He is a machine learning tech startup founder, which y'all will hear about. In 2013, John founded and personally bootstrapped Deep Learning Analytics in Arlington, Virginia. It was a machine learning startup that was acquired in 2019. He's also a recognized research and development leader. He was named a Whitaker Fellow in 1995, an SAIC Technical Fellow in 2011, a Fellow of the Washington Academy of Sciences in 2019, and an Engineering Fellow of General Dynamics Mission Systems in 2020. So please join me in welcoming all of our speakers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry to lead our discussion.
Awesome. Can everyone hear me? Yes, awesome. Okay, so to start off the panel today, this is a question for everyone, but could each of you share a story of how you've gotten to where you are today, whether that's through your education or a first job, or anything that could have influenced the direction that you've taken? And we can start with Barbara and just hop in.
Okay. All right. So I will tell you that, all transparency, I absolutely fell into IT. Long story short, because I don't want to take a lot of time, but just a little bit of backstory. I was the one who always took the IT person to the back room back in the day of voice over IP. So that age, and started watching, and I started learning. Pretty soon, they no longer needed to call him. I was the one who, did all of the ads and additions for those who started. And so that was my one of my first introductions of knowing how I could learn something by applying myself into the IT field. I've always been in the SDLC space, software development lifecycle. So I've always project managed implementations for all types of implementations. We were to learn our application within 72 hours and be able to train on it and deliver it. I started there and worked my way up to project management. I had a kid ask me, shouldn't call him a kid, I had a young man ask me in Starbucks this week for a word of advice, which I thought was a really good way to utilize his job as a barista. And I just told him to be persistent. Be persistent in anything that you go after, and it's with persistence comes consistency.
I can go next. Mine was more of a necessity. Excel kept crashing. So out of school, I was doing marketing analytics and, dealing with a lot of different data sources. So I had to make this report when I worked at Discovery Communications on all of their channels and their websites from all over the world, which was, I think, like something like 300 websites. But my Excel kept crashing, even though I used macros. So I started learning Python, and I was just hooked after coding and understanding that, wow, I can do so much more than just automate this report. I can build a website, I can build a pipeline, I can, use data modeling. So I signed up for a boot camp at General Assembly. I was very lucky when I'm sure Miami, Florida has gotten better, but when I moved to DC, I think there was just so many more resources. So there were in-person classes that I could go to, like General Assembly, and I learned how to, use all of these models, but I didn't really understand what they were doing. So that's why I got my master's in data science to really understand the black box. And I'm sure I'll talk about it more because this is data and decision making, but it's not just about the algorithm, it's really about the data. So I'll get more into that. But in the end, it was really out of necessity.
Okay, so my start in, I guess, machine learning or just the data disciplines was in '93, so it's about 30 years ago now. I was in a biomedical engineering program that had a senior project that I needed to do. And I knew a woman who was in that same biomedical engineering program that did her senior project in her speech recognition lab. I got started there. And basically all the work I've done since has been on, we used to call it pattern recognition. At some point we started calling it data science. When there was lots of decisions to be made in data science, it became machine learning. And so now I am squarely machine learning and deep learning subject matter expert. And that's kind of how I got into that field. So like biomedical engineering is not the standard STEM like program you would take to become a data scientist, but it does train you broadly in STEM. You get chemistry, biology, computer science, a lot of math, all the engineering disciplines. So it's multidisciplinary. So I thought that was a really good intro to STEM in general. And that helped me be broad enough that I could make that transition into data science and machine learning later. My PhD is also in biomedical engineering and 2000.
Thank you all for sharing. And going off of this and thinking about your positions now, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do? What does your day-to-day look like? And how does the work that you do help people?
I'd be happy to continue and start. What I do now is a lot different from what I used to do. That's the first thing. So my career is changed in what I do day to day. When I was an individual contributor back at General Electric's Research Center, at SAIC, at National Institutes of Health, and then even when I started my startup, I had to be an individual contributor there before I started doing all the business side of the sales part and just management of everything, hiring people, et cetera. But what I do now really is what made that startup successful, and that is I help people identify all that you need to have in place to be successful with a machine learning effort. And it all starts always with a business use case. There has to be some customer that will pay to convert some kind of input data into some output. And that output might be a decision, for instance. And you have to have a way to measure that performance when you're getting things right and wrong. There has to be a baseline performance, something that you can assess in terms of how fast it does that process, how well it does it, in terms of making mistakes, how much it costs to do it. You have to have a relevant data set that you can train and test on. You have to be able to evaluate on these benchmark data sets. You have to have something that can run a model. And if I do deep learning, I'm going to do that on GPUs. So you have to have a GPU compute resource. You have to have talent that knows how to code for that resource and solve that particular problem, that domain. You need to have a production environment that even after you find out that you can solve that problem, you then need to serve customers. And that's a different engineering challenge often than proving that you can do it. So you need a production environment. And you need salespeople to grow the business and all the other things. So that's most of what I do right now is I help organizations figure out how can they possibly be successful with this really complex multidisciplinary field of machine learning.
I can piggyback on that. I feel like I have had a pretty short career in the last really 8 years, but I've worn a lot of these different hats. And I gave a talk on how, data science is so broad and there's a role for everything. So what John was saying, there is a role for, production, research, analysis. So your day-to-day is really going to differ, with the role that you're in. The role that I'm in right now is very much researcher. So I do try to have a sort of prototype, how would this function in real life lens, but really as a researcher, sometimes it's a little bit more static, not really as dynamic. So my day-to-day is really looking at historical stuff. So not necessarily things are happening right now and what happened then and how can I improve that for the future. So and specifically with government clients, it's very different than commercial. So a lot of it is educating government clients. So one thing that a skill set that I think people forget or assume that that stereotype of software engineers that you're head down coding, not talking to anyone, data science is not like that. You have to be a people person. You have to understand, and that comes with understanding the business problems, a use case, understanding the data from subject matter experts, and then communicating. So a lot of my day-to-day is meetings, educating, coding, mentoring. So I think it's really a great position if you love to have variety in your day.
Still muted.
Barbara, we see your lips moving. Oh, there you
I
are.
know.
Oh, there you go.
I'm waiting for it to unmute. Okay, so what I do in addition to, I live in the same space that John and Monica live in. Monica's on the federal side of Accenture and I'm on the commercial side. But what I do that is a little different is meeting with prospective clients and clients. And by the time the team is put together and the research All of that is working in the background. Clients are coming to Accenture to find out how to land and expand Gen AI to benefit their business. So a little background about Accenture. It is a consulting company, and we are working with every company that you possibly know of from A to Z to improve their strategy, not only in data science, but in pretty much all realms of business. And so with that, I work in the LLM, Large Language Models, Center for Excellence within the company. So we're working with leaderships, and we are, putting strategies together to help companies decide how they are going to utilize Gen AI, because it's the latest thing since the iPhone, right? I mean, it's the latest and the hottest thing since the iPhone, and everybody wants a piece of it because their competitors wants a piece of it. So I'm in charge of managing the team that does that. I deliver presentations, go to summits and whatnot, and have meetings like this with clients to let them know a little bit about Gen AI, to bring them up to speed, and to give them an idea of how to approach their strategy in this industry.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. So as you've described your positions today and what your day-to-day looks like, has anything surprised you about your career so far? And is there anyone who wants to start? It doesn't have to be a specific order.
I'm still off mute, and since that's where I have my difficulty, I'll start. Really not much surprises me in technology. I consider myself a futurist, and so I'm waiting for the next big thing to happen. And what I'd like about the latest technology, which is this, what I like about it and what's different is everybody wants a piece of it, as opposed to, and I would just weigh this against the metaverse, right? When that first came out, which I think required a bit more upskilling in order to understand it, in order to be a part of it. Nothing has moved like ChatGPT. There's no piece of technology that has moved this fast. And so, when you think about technology and what I really focus on, what I try to be really passionate about is the responsibility of AI overall, but especially with this, because it can be a loose cannon. And I'll compare it to social media. Corporate stayed away from social media for quite some time. They didn't want anything to do with it, pretty much because we were at the helms of it. We're at the helms of it at home, doing all of our off time, and they've heard of all of those horror stories. So they didn't want to bring that in to represent their corporation or their brand. And so they just sat back and they waited until their competition decided to step in and do it right. And then everybody wanted to be on board. Not with Gen AI. Everybody is off the fence, just waiting to be told what to do. And so the surprising part might be, if I had to retract just a little bit, is the speed of it all, because I've never seen any piece of technology that moved this fast. When Word went from Word Perfect to Word, okay, so and everybody know that they needed it, but it didn't move this fast. So I would say the speed of it all.
Thank you for that answer.
I want to second that. That was way better than any surprise that I could have talked about, because they are both super risky. Social media, anything can happen. Gen AI, it'll spit out the weirdest, most improbable things right when you don't want it to. And you need a human to vet it because it's not responsible for its own actions. So things that surprised me in my career are just how difficult it is to get organizations to function in a data-driven way, to make decisions that are based on evidence and data. So you would think that that wouldn't be such a hard sell, because we know that there's ROI to making data-driven decisions. And yet, a lot of times when I'm talking to executives or decision makers at any level in an organization, there'll be this resistance to one or more things. They'll say, well, that we don't really need to know that, or we know that. It often comes out like this: we know this to be true, and they don't know it to be true. There's no evidence showing that it's true. It's just an opinion that is held firmly by an individual. And we do want to have data to back up decisions that matter when you're trying to make ROI for your client. So I would just say that resistance, to me, I've never really understood it, but it is pervasive.
So my answer, I feel like I try to always be like the devil, like look at it both ways, like understand that I'm a champion of AI, but I'm also, I don't want to say cynical about AI, but I understand like the ramifications. And like one of the biggest inspirations and books that I read early on in my machine learning career is Weapons of Math Destruction by Kathy O'Neill. I highly, highly recommend that book. And that's why I kind of wanted to understand the black box a bit more. And what kind of have surprised me about AI is that a lot of things within a business could be solved by something a little bit more simpler and more understandable, and how important like statistics backgrounds are. Like I'm all for auto ML coming out and, you know, and machine learning to be available to everyone and inclusive, you know, to everyone. But I think it's also really important to understand statistics, and like, just like we've seen, you know, companies like as big as Google, like put out big things out there, and you know their training data was not up to par with like people of color, and like now they're, you know, doing a lot better. But just like what surprised me is, you know, really that we're going at the speed of light, but like foundations is so important. Like data, you know, understanding your sample, is it generalized to a population? Like, are you introducing bias? Are, you know, understanding like the outputs of your model and how it affects, you know, different sections of your customers. So I think I am optimistic, but also apprehensive of the things that I have discovered in how machine learning is made and how some models are being trained. I am excited because like I love, you know, automating things for the better. Like I've seen it do really good, especially in our government. Like there are some benefits that Social Security Administration enlisted Accenture Federal Services, and now people are getting their benefits resolved like so much faster. So I think there's a lot of like good in AI and automating processes, but just to sum it all up, what has, you know, surprised me is just kind of like how people really need to think about the foundations of statistics, even with like the latest technology, and how it could be forgotten sometimes.
Awesome. That's all of your answers have been awesome. Very insightful too. So sort of shifting gears, this week, the talk of discussion has been careers in data science. So how, or what advice I think would be, or how do students find out more about careers in data science? Or even how did you learn about your own careers?
Oh, can I start? I think it basically is something that both Barbara and Monica already said, that you learn by doing. Just do something in a data space. Just whether you do it on a Git repo, or whether you're fixing Excel at scale, or you're contributing to some open source project, just doing it will introduce you to all the tools that are relevant to doing it professionally. And then every role that you might get professionally in an organization is going to have a way they do it. There's going to be a Git repo, there's going to be code review, there's going to be certain reports that you're going to need to make, there's going to be a daily or a nightly build that people are going to make sure runs. They're going to be testing suites and testing data sets that you want to make sure that you're familiar with. But those are all things that you pick up on the job. But that said, knowing statistics, there's not really any substitute for that. You know, just knowing you can't test on the same data you trained on, for instance, that's something that's super important in our field. And yet, if you don't have that fundamental training, why that is, a lot of the other stuff you're going to probably struggle with. So some formal education in STEM makes sense, but you can pick up even statistics in your career path because everyone around you will be beating it into you if you do it wrong. So I would say just doing it is the surest path that I've seen.
I think like models, you know, like there's this whole thing of transfer learning and there's different paths of, you know, learning, but I found it fastest to go back to school and learn from like experts. But again, I don't want to sound like going back to school and getting your master's is your only way for you to be, you know, excel in this field. I know myself, I'm not as disciplined to like, you know, after work, after a full day of work, you know, to hit the books and like do my own projects. Like I needed to have some sort of accountability by, you know, paying a master's and like having homework and like having access to teachers. But yeah, really just other than like doing the things is learning from others, like speak up, find a mentor. I feel like that's the fastest way and sometimes the best way also in conjunction with doing it yourself is to learn. Especially in data science, I think it should be a very community type of base, especially if we're making things that maybe decide things in people's lives. Like a lot of people should be looking at it. There should be a lot of code review from each other. I don't know about everybody else's experience, but like in my experience, data science / researcher, sometimes I'm the only person in that project that is doing data science. So having like a network, like Women Who Code, at least for me, Latinas in Tech, like someone that I can ask in the, you know, the echo of the internet of like, hey, like, how would you approach, you know, something like this? So definitely mentorship and teachers.
I have to agree with that and definitely echo the recommendation of finding a mentor, and that mentor doesn't have to be in data scientists or AI or what have you. It could be a career mentor. And you can have several mentors, by the way. I know sometimes when we say that, we deliver the message of finding someone who can take you to the next step. But you can really have several career mentors that will participate to your growth, if you will. But I'd like to recommend that if you are not on LinkedIn, to get on LinkedIn and just immerse yourself and search via hashtags for what you want to try to find out. Join groups, even read all of the posts and newsletters that come through. You know, just curate your own stream of information and take everything that's free that interests you. And there's a lot of things that are free. There are a lot of opportunities out there just so you can, you know, get to know what you might be want to niche yourself in. I am not a coder, and I have a similar story to Monica's about Python. Like I'm not a programmer, and I was introduced to Python by participating in a hackathon. I always do hackathons where I'm not the SME in the group because I want to learn, right? That old saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, leave the room. So I never join a hackathon where I know everything, but I do bring my skill set. So I brought my design thinking and storytelling, and I was very transparent. I was like, can't help you with most of this, but you know what? When we get it all together, I can sure make it look good and sound good. And so that's when I was introduced to Python. And that's when I found out that Python and a project manager goes hand in hand. And I never would have done it had I just not stepped out, tried something new, so that I could learn something new. So take that as a tip.
Can I add one more thing about just careers in the data disciplines? I think especially new graduates get hung up on the idea of specific titles like data engineer, data scientist, statistician. I don't see that being all that useful, partly because a statistician will often be doing machine learning, or someone who got a CS degree will find themselves doing ML ops or something, and there are different roles. Being aware of them, Monica mentioned that she was aware of the production environment, even though a lot of her stuff was a little removed from that, just proving feasibility in a research setting, which you must do. If that doesn't work, you would never productionize it, for instance. But knowing that there is a production environment, that she's got to respect a little bit of how they work, that also, I would say, makes her a better candidate to jump into that role if she finds herself in that role in the future, because her career might change too, just like all of ours.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for the addition as well. I'm going to transition into some of the questions that are for individual panelists. So I'll start out by asking the first three, and then I'll open the floor to our peer mentors for additional questions, and then we'll go from there. So I'll start with Monica. A question that we have for you would be, what motivated you to pursue a master's degree in data science, and how has it enhanced your skills and knowledge in your field?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I did a boot camp, and I am not, putting down boot camps. I think they're great, right? I think they're the tip of the iceberg. And I knew that I could spin up all of these models. There's this great Venn diagram of like coding, statistics, and like, I think engineering, and how, one side of the Venn diagram is called like hacking. So just because I can create it and do it doesn't mean that I know that I can understand it. So like I said, I am a motivated person, but not so motivated to like learn by myself. So I went back to school. I became a research assistant to also help pay for school while I worked. So it really, the Weapons of Math Destruction book really propelled me to like, okay, I really want to understand like what these models are doing. I'm a Latina, and I feel like, there's little representation of me in this field, hopefully not for longer. And like, I see it, becoming more and more diverse, but I wanted to be one of the people creating the models, because I feel like it is very important to me how these things are being created, how automations are being created. So really, that's why I went back to school.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then for John, could you tell us a bit about your experience as the founder of Deep Learning Analytics, and what was your inspiration behind it?
Well, the inspiration was history. So in 2012, a big event happened in machine learning. It was the ImageNet Big Bang. A group of researchers from Toronto had just shown they could do object recognition at scale better, faster, and cheaper than had ever been done before. Like the best error rates on that particular benchmark in 2011 were about 30% error. In 2012, their competitors might have gotten down into the high 20s, like 29, 27% error. They got 15% error. The whole computer vision community turned on a dime on that result, partly because they released their code open source. The resources you needed to train that model were just two 3 gigabyte Fermi generation GPUs, and that's only about $600 of computing equipment, and the data was open. So the message to the world in 2012 is everybody can do this now, and nobody could do it before. And there's a lot of economic value in the world that's created just by something looking at a thing and saying what it is. Think of any assembly line, for instance. Based on that result, in May of 2013, so 6 months after it came out, I started the company knowing not what I was going to do, except that I was going to use that technology. And I started talking to a DARPA program manager. I had done work for DARPA in my research work. And that DARPA PM was familiar with some of the work I'd done. I pitched the idea of using that technology on a program that could show feasibility, and we did. And not only did we show feasibility, we showed that we outcompeted the former state of the art, the best anyone could do on his problem. That led to a full DARPA program that ended up being a $12 million program that for a 2-person startup it was unheard of that a company like ours would beat Lockheed, Raytheon, Boeing, et cetera. So we got really lucky with timing, and more than just the timing of the technology, not many people were looking for deep learning experts or people that could become deep learning experts in 2015. So I got really lucky in terms of recruiting too, because the best talent was not being appreciated the way it could be. I also got lucky because I had worked with a bunch of these people and I knew how good they were. So I went back to my career contacts. Oh, and side wisdom, be a good teammate. The way I got that team was being a good teammate in the past. And the best people joined the team. And after that, it was just the team doing what the team did well. And the rest of the story is history. We became the fastest growing company by revenue in Arlington 3 years in a row, 2015, 2016, 2017, in increasing revenue categories. So that was my experience. Recognize I got super lucky with timing. And if I'm going to take credit for anything, it would be recognizing that that result in 2012 was historic, and hiring people who were much smarter than me to work with, and trusting them to do their jobs well.
Awesome, thank you. And our next question is for Barbara. In your current position as Global Program Manager, could you provide an example of a global program management project that you've successfully managed, and maybe even what challenges you faced as well?
So imagine working on Eastern Standard Time. We're all used to that. But your entire team is offshore, possibly in India. I don't know, time zone of easily plus 8 hours, maybe more. And then that's your team, but that team and you're onshore, you're supporting people in Asia Pac, in EMEA, and still having to stay within your Eastern Standard Daylight Time that your body is used to. That's the key. So that's an example from a team perspective. But that goes to say that, technology is everywhere and is applicable to everyone. And the way that the companies that we are all used to, they're global. And so when there's something new or something that they want to roll out or implement, then chances are they're going to start it here first in North America and do a beta somewhere and then roll it out to their global locations. So that's a very good example. Program manager versus project management. So that's PMO versus PM. And the difference there is more administrative, how to do it, talks about governance. It's a little bit of HR in that. So it is the foundation of building a cross-functional team. It's what program manager is, in addition to having the PM skills. So there is a lot to it. And with that, if there's anyone here who is interested in the umbrella of PMO, to start honing in on your skills that chances are you already have. You already have them because you probably have already planned an event. That's project management. You probably have already been to a family reunion and planned something from that and delegated it. That's project management. So think about the skills that are already in you and that you do well. You're organized. That is definitely project management. You don't have to be anal about it, because I'm not. I don't want to be that person. And you're used to managing and you like to manage. And, as John said, be a team member. You cannot be an effective leader if you have not been an effective team member. So that's a little bit of my world.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and open it up to our peer mentors.
Hi, Monica. This question is for you. In your current role at Accenture, what are some of the main programming tools that you use? And if you could provide us with examples of the data you manage and the impact that it has had.
Yeah, hi, it's so nice to meet you. I use mostly Python. I have used R and SQL because I can query from a database. And another is, which the government is really, adopting. I would think is really like the first steps is cloud computing. So before there wasn't a lot of data, and now there's like so much data. And for me as a data scientist to crunch, the numbers, like I told you, my Excel used to crash. So now, I need a lot of computing power, and I can't really sometimes get that from my own laptop. So leveraging the cloud to create, all of these calculations. How I can apply that, I don't know how much I can say, but I work a lot with like text data and analyzing customer interactions, and just, data science is so broad and there's just so much you can do in one sector, right? Like computer vision, natural language processing, analytics, cybersecurity, et cetera. I can go on and on, but specifically with natural language processing, you could do stuff like sentiment analysis. Is this customer happy? Did we answer the customer's questions? Do we have enough, reference documents to link to? Now you see ChatGPT, which is like exploded, right? And it's just so much more than a chatbot. But things that I use with machine learning is to help, answer people's questions, making sure that they have just a good customer experience. And there's a lot of metrics to measure that. But I have been surprised of how much machine learning aspects that can be utilized, with helping the customer, and then also the other side, like helping the agent. Like, does this person need help? Does this person need some training? I could go on and on about customer analytics and machine learning, but just to give you a sense of that.
Hi, yeah, I had a question for John as well. Thank you so much for answering, Monica. John, how your career spans various positions in academia, industry, and government agencies. How have these various diverse experiences contributed to expertise in deep learning, machine learning, and data science?
Great question. So I was doing work at a big government contractor, SAIC. It's similar to Accenture, but I was working on an NIH grant, which was kind of unusual for them. They did more defense work, but it was NIH. And as part of that, I did a sabbatical at MIT in computational neuroscience in 2010, specifically in deep learning before the deep learning big bang in 2012. So I lucked out having that experience. So again, luck with timing. And also that probably helped me appreciate when that 2012 result did happen, how important it was. Because all of a sudden it became something that could at scale do a really economically valuable thing for lots of people and lots of different use cases. And we're still finding new use cases. There's still unexplored, untapped economic value just from the 2012 result, let alone the LLM wave that happened, like Barbara pointed out, like the fastest uptake in history of any sort of internet trend ever. So I got lucky with that connection between, it was government funded work at an arguably an industrial scientist position, doing an academic sabbatical. So yes, that connection got me seeing something before it became a real like big bang moment. And it helped me recognize the big bang moment, which also helped me make that decision to start that company, which was the best professional experience of my career. So I guess it's luck, and I don't know. That's one example of how it helped me. Also, teaching is a good thing to do it at some point, I think, in everyone's career. It helps develop empathy. It helps develop patience and understanding, to really go through new material with people who haven't yet gone through that. So academic, and then yeah, government. There's a whole process. There's a whole body of knowledge to understanding how government funding works, and I can't recommend that as a career path. It's nuanced and complex and complicated and often bureaucratic, but it was also the thing that funded DLA as a startup. So 6-1. Is that enough of an answer, Maritza?
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic answer. It's great to see how your variety of experiences, it doesn't matter where you started, you just kind of accumulated a wide variety, and it all, your entire journey contributed to where you got to this point.
Yeah,
so thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. This question is for Barbara. I know we talked a bit about AI already earlier, but how do you see AI impacting project management and program delivery in the future? You're unmuted.
I got it. That's a great question, because one of the fears of new technology, not just Gen AI, is the replacement of human work. And so, nothing is as automated or streamlined or processed out as my industry, right? So we thrive on productivity. But to that, I always like to retort that this new technology is really meant to increase your productivity. You're supposed to make it applicable to what you're doing, not replace it. And then I also go on to say, which is kind of hard to hear, but if you find that it is replacing a job, then you should look at the job that he or she was doing, because there's just so much out there that that person was not doing correctly, that it was just easy for to implement the Gen AI tools to replace it. But that's not the intention of this technology by any means. So I see it as automating a lot of the things that we do so that we can do other things, so that we can meet deadlines, because no project manager worth their salt wants to be over budgeted, because we have to bring either more people on the team or stay on longer than we are supposed to. So when you look at things like, Microsoft Outlook, which is one of the tools that we all use, and the upcoming introduction of Copilot, which is coming out soon, very, very soon, and how that's going to be able to implement and speed up the work that you do. So Copilot is a tool that will be added on as an extension, if you will, just for clearer understanding. And it will be able to streamline, if I give you the scenario of you're on PTO for 2 weeks and you come back. And as you come back, that you have an event or project or a task that's delivered, because, that's always the way that it happens when we go on vacation. We come back to something big, right? And so instead of dwelling through all of your 200 to 500 emails, Copilot is right there for you to sort through it via keyword, so that you can pull all of those emails up front to help you get to the right email and answer it right away. Because there's nothing like answering an email that's been answered 8 emails prior to, right? So it helps you in that way. And it also helps you as far as, pulling out data from some of the information that you already have. So it is meant to assist. It's going to be a huge partner in the project management world. And, I'm looking forward to it, to training on it and showing people how to utilize it, very much so.
Awesome. Thank you all for those answers. We're going to do another round of questions for each of the panelists, but since we are a little tight on time, just be cognizant in your next answers so that we are able to fit everyone in. And I'll go ahead and send it back to Joanne for our next question.
All right, so I have a question for Monica, and I would like to ask, could you discuss your experience teaching Python to women through organizations like Hear Me Code and Women Who Code? And how can these organizations become a resource for students like us?
Sure. So that's how I learned how to code. I was very lucky. It was in a room full of women. And and then I became a teacher and just like volunteering our time. In terms of like how it helped, so obviously it helps, have more accessibility. Like data science should not be, should look like one type of person doing it, right? Like the more diversity a field has, the better it is for everybody. And in terms of teaching, I think there's no other better way to learn but to teach it to somebody else. And were times after that. So with Women Who Code, so Hear Me Code was like the in-person classes that this nonprofit was in. But for Women Who Code, I would talk about like a tech topic or data science topic that I probably recently learned in my master's. And I really feel like you don't have to be an expert, to teach someone something you know. So I think teaching really helped reinforce my learning path. So I think these types of networks that are built on people being excited to teach other people and to network with other people are really great. So highly, highly recommend. So I know we said you should get on LinkedIn, but finding a network that also is excited about a field, but when it's about a network filled with people who look more like you, like, I don't know, it excites me a lot. So definitely a big shout out to Women Who Code, and then also Boolean Girls Who Code. I think that's how we got connected, Alyssa. So I think I'm pretty lucky to be in an area where there's a lot of networking, but I think now since like COVID, a lot of organizations have been accessible online. So don't think that it's just, your zip code is hindering you from accessing stuff and networks and people. So I think that's the only silver lining that came out of that. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Yeah, that's an extremely inspiring response. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I also wanted to ask a question for Barbara. How do you collaborate with international cultures and diverse teams in your role as a global program manager? What strategies do you employ to foster effective communication and teamwork?
I love that question. So one of the ways that has been effective for me is to do after hours or offsite, before COVID, offsite things that is within my team. And then after hours, we did a lot of virtual extracurricular type activities. When I'm on a Teams call or Zoom, but when I'm on a Teams call, I try to find some commonalities. And even on this particular call, as an example, Monica and we have so much in common. She's federal. I started with federal. We both work for the same company. You said you were from Miami, right? We're from Miami. We have nemesis college universities. I looked her up on LinkedIn already. I was like, oh, she's cool. And then I was like, she went to Florida State. And so I take the time to look up people or check people out or get to know my team a little better. And invariably, you're going to find a commonality. You are going to find something, be it sports or arts or culture or, foodie type things. And that's your lead in, that's your lead in. That's how you get to know someone better. I love the makeup of this panel. If this could be a representation of what you see in the future, you have male, you have female, you have ethnicities and whatnot. And John is very engaging in the chat, and I'd like that. I wouldn't hesitate to be on another panel with this particular panel because there's a great vibe here. So find out something about someone else, or just sometimes you just have to sit back and listen and see what kind of resonates with you. When you're working with international cultures and teams, you should be respectful of their time, the way that they do things. Taking a page from people outside of America, listen, they take their vacation and they mean it. We take our vacation and we're like, well, if you really need me, ping me and I'll answer. They don't do that. They take it, they're gone, and they mean it. And they have their traditions, which I learned so much from. So be open, be inviting, and just allow yourself to find something that you have in common. So one of the things is, Monica, you mentioned a book, a machine learning book. I was wondering if you could drop that in chat, because I would be interested in passing that on.
I do.
I hope that answers your question.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. You guys are so insightful.
Hi, yes. So this next question is for John. Throughout your career, you have been recognized as a research and development leader with numerous patents and publications to your name. The question that we have for you is, how do you approach research and development, and what drives your passion for advancing machine learning?
Interesting. So when I do patent work or publications, it's usually for something that I had either been brought on to specifically solve that problem. So I rarely choose the problem myself, even in the research space. So academics in formal academic roles often do kind of define their own career through the process of being a professor and getting tenure and getting publications, building a lab, et cetera. That wasn't exactly how I did it. My work was typically contract work, so it's given to me. But then once it's given to me, the process looks just like those. It just might be a little bit more diverse in the problems I'm going to have to solve, because they're put on me rather than I'm saying, oh, I'm going to go make a contribution here. And that suited me. And I think my biomedical engineering background as both undergrad and graduate, it gave me really broad training. The criticism that used to be leveled about the biomedical engineering field was that it was a mile wide and an inch deep. But in my career, I just keep getting a little bit deeper in each of the problems that I end up doing research on. And both the research effort in publications and patents, they're very similar. You have to find something new. It has to be novel. No one else has done it before. That's why they're asking for your help with it. And it's got to be useful. I don't know if that's a good enough answer to the question, but I approach each of these problems as, well, this is what's in front of me. I guess it's kind of like a doctor treating the patient in front of them. You do what you can.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for answering our questions today. I was going to do a quick lightning round of advice, or like any advice that you do have for everyone. I don't really think we have time.
One word. Yeah. One word.
Okay, so
advice.
okay, awesome. So yeah, if each panelist could give us additional advice, because you have given us a lot of anecdotes to take away from this. So yeah, just one word.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Community.
Persistence.
those.
Thank you all again so much. And thank you for also staying after a little bit. Really appreciate y'all's participation in this.
Yes,
welcome.
thank you so much for coming, everyone. We really appreciate your time coming and talking to our students. These types of things are very meaningful for students. You know, when you're a student, you're doing your studies, you're really focused on your work and your classes. You don't often get those opportunities to go out and talk to and hear from professionals. So these really do have a big impact on our students and all students. So we really, really appreciate your time coming and talking to us today. So thank you, everyone. And I'll just say one more thing. I heard luck come up a lot in your stories. And the one thing I want to say about that is yes. And, you know, it's also, you put yourself out in those positions, those situations, you put yourself in places and spaces you're going to learn and grow. And that also plays a big role in where you end up. So thank you again so much for joining us, and we will be in touch and yeah, stay in close touch. Thank you so much.